Daniel Meier. So we're here, and we just start just like that.
Okay.
All right. So it's been nice to meet you during this, I guess, campaign season for Durham County District Attorney. So I'm going to turn it over to you to tell people a little bit about yourself and your run for this seat.
Okay. My name's Daniel Meier. I'm a candidate for Durham County District Attorney. I've been a defense attorney here in Durham for 16 years. In that time, I've done hundreds of cases on everything from speeding tickets to first-degree murder. Just finished up a murder trial on Monday. Actually been campaigning and trying cases, which is loads of fun. And I'm just, running for district attorney. I think, having worked on the defense side for a lot, I think there's a lot of reforms and changes kind of as time is catching up, and I think I understand the system real well and kind of want to help move Durham forward.
Okay, great. Now, are you originally from Durham?
No, I've lived, my dad was a hospital CEO, which means we moved around a lot. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, then lived in Mobile, Hobbs, New Mexico, Roanoke, Virginia, Nashville, Tennessee, Dallas, Texas, went to school at Notre Dame, went back to Dallas, went to grad school at University of Alabama in Birmingham, went to Dallas, then went to San Antonio working with Methodist Healthcare System, went back to Dallas, then came out here for law school and stayed. I came out here for law school in '99. So.
All right, so North Carolina was good to you and you decided to be good to North Carolina.
Pretty much. Once I came out here, I really liked it, and when I was in South Bend, I realized that I'm not a fan of the cold weather. And
that makes two of us.
Yes, and so I came to North Carolina, graduated from law school in '02, worked for a little bit, started my own firm, and have been here ever since.
Okay, so so you've already said you've been doing this for 16 years, so you've got a lot of experience, but why now? So why was this the point in time that you wanted to go down this route?
I think I've been just looking around, kind of thinking about where I want to head. I'm having fun with my firm, enjoying what I'm doing, but I just saw an opportunity to, times are changing, Durham's getting more progressive, society's kind of moving, and there's a need for the criminal justice reform. We kind of need to go from the old way to some of the newer ways of thinking, and I think the opportunity was here.
So when you mention some of the new ways of thinking, do you have any particular ideas about, look, Sheila, here's this one sort of driving thing that has been sort of bothering me?
Yeah, there's a few things. One of the main ones is people incarcerated in the Durham County Jail. Indigent Defense Services recently switched to a contract system, which is a whole different animal that can be talked about another time, but I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of contracts. So on any given day, I usually have between 25 and 35 people incarcerated in the Durham County Jail. So I usually have between 5 and 10% of their population. One of the things that I've seen in Durham and elsewhere is too many people are needlessly incarcerated. You either have people who are in there because they're poor, their bond is set at like $1,000 or $2,000. And I know people say, well, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. That's not what it means. If your bond is set at $1,000 and you're sitting in jail, it's because you don't have $100 to spare, nor does your family. That's not fair. People need to be in the communities, back to their families, back to their homes. And so I think the DA can't do all of that alone, but you can work with the judges and things like that. And I know they've instituted a little bit of a low bond review, but you've also got to get it on the front end, work on the presumptive bonds. I don't think we should have secured bonds below $5,000. If your bond warrants a bond, if your circumstances warrant a bond that low, unsecure it. Now, obviously, if it's a violent crime, if there's individual victims, if you don't show up for court a lot, set the bond higher than $5,000. But people with a bond of $1,000, $2,000 shouldn't be sitting in that jail waiting to see, oh, is my case going to get resolved? No, but you know what? We'll give you a time-served plea. Okay, I'm innocent, but I'm going to take this because I want to get out. So that certainly is a part of it. We need to not do that. The other problem you see is on the flip side is people who are in jail a year or 2 years. The murder case I just tried, the guy has been in jail since April 25th of 2013. The jails are not designed for long-term incarceration. They're just not. You don't get the outside time, you don't get the contact visits. And so I've seen you need to kind of move the cases. There's a tendency to look at cases as you get close to trial and realize you're missing stuff, and it's like, okay, well, we need to delay the trial and go. And so that certainly was a large part of it, is, we need to move people in and out of the jail much quicker.
Okay.
Another issue is I think you see a lot of focus on convictions. And I'm not saying, I'm not going to say anything bad about the current DA's office. I think I can move us forward. I think I can move us efficiently. and do a lot of things differently and better. But we're certainly not a disaster in the DA's office. They're doing okay. I just think we can do better. But there does tend to be a prosecutorial focus, and Roger is a career prosecutor on convictions. I've got to convict him, I've got to convict him, I've got to convict him. And that's not always the best answer. I think there needs to be consequences for actions, but those consequences don't always need to be convictions. Convictions, you have huge collateral consequences. It follows you for life. They have recently changed the expunction laws a little bit to help with some of it, but you hear a lot in the circles and stuff too, if you have to check the box, things like that. And that's not right. Some actions absolutely warrant conviction, incarceration, probation, whatever, but a lot of the other ones are driven by mental health issues, substance abuse issues, or just minor things that need to do. And I think there needs to be appropriate consequences for your actions, but it doesn't have to be convictions. You can expand the deferral programs. The misdemeanor diversion program that was implemented under Roger, or under Mr. Eccles, but that was spearheaded by Judge Morey, who's now our representative, is great. And I think we can expand that. That only goes, I think it's 18 to 21, 16 to 21, I guess. There's no reason that shouldn't be expanded to all ages. Same thing with deferrals. You shouldn't have just a cap of, oh, you had a conviction or you had a deferral 15 years ago, you're done. Look at the circumstances. So I think that's a large part of it as well.
Yeah, let me ask you something. So when you move away from an objective standard, like the one you just said that's
Right.
based on age, to something that's a little more subjective, do you run the risk of maybe running into the circumstance then where you have some people that are able to get more lenient treatment because you are then taking into account some of these other factors, and there's a little bit more discretion on who gets it and what it's going to look like?
And you do, and you certainly need to balance against that. I mean, that is always a huge issue, and we certainly see in the system, unfortunately, there's a lot of racially disparate treatment. It's what I always say is, the individual actors aren't racist, but the system itself has systemic racism. You see that a lot in the crack versus cocaine, same drug. Obama did a good job going from 101 to disparity to 4-to-1, but shouldn't even be 4-to-1.
Disparity, right?
And I think you do need to guard against that. And part of that's going to be incumbent upon the district attorneys, the ADAs, and the defense attorneys to make sure they are presenting the complete story. Make sure you are looking at the individualized the circumstances of that person. I mean, you're always going to run into that a little bit, but I think you just need to kind of guide to it. But on the flip side, I would rather err on the side of being a little more lenient for people than saying, okay, no, you don't get this because I'm afraid that someone else might get it who doesn't deserve it.
So let me talk a little bit, and I do want to
Okay.
sort of talk about
Yeah.
your recent case in just a minute, because you do have experience in that area, and that
Right.
it's on the front page when you.
Yes.
It's hard to miss that case. But let's backtrack a little bit to the Confederate
Okay.
statute, and
Okay.
what went on with that, and how that was handled. What are some of your thoughts regarding that?
I mean, that's actually the whole different issue as far as how law enforcement handled it, how the prosecutor handled it. I was actually in the middle of the crowd for most of it. I ended up going into the county commissioner meeting before the statute came down. I don't think we should have Confederate statues in front of the courthouses. I understand the anger, I understand the frustration, I understand why it's not right. I mean, that's put them in war memorials. I also understand why the police didn't respond. I mean, I know there's a lot of anger about why didn't the sheriff jump in and stop it? Well, because we don't do that for property damage. I mean, for all that the property was damaged, it was a reasonably controlled protest. Everyone knew what they were going to do. I don't think anyone expected the statue to come down. I think they thought they were going to throw a rope on it, pull it, and say, okay, now you've had your fun. But once it fell, it got calm again. And so there would have been no point for the police to jump in and start throwing pepper spray, stuff like that. We don't do chases and things like that. Once it got into the charging range, I think that's when you needed to kind of look at, are there resolutions, consequences that aren't necessarily convictions? From what we've heard, and I wasn't directly involved in the case, most of the folks knew there were going to be consequences for their actions, or assumed there were, and they were willing to accept them. Do some community service, do some restitution. I think that should have been more explored. Now, I don't know where that went or not.
Right.
I do know ultimately one person took a deferral that they did dismiss, and then they went ahead and went forward with trials. And I saw some of the trials, obviously we saw that. The one thing that I didn't quite understand with it, I don't know why you start with your weakest case, but I mean, that's prosecutorial discretion. I mean, that was obviously a question for Mr. Eccles. But at the end of the day, there was a question on evidence, and you've seen some of the newspaper articles, and either the district attorney's office thought they had sufficient evidence to convict, and the judge thought otherwise, or they were aware they didn't have evidence, but then the question is, did they ask for more and not get it? Did they have more and not know it? Or did they just never ask for more? And that's where there needs to be more communication and work between law enforcement and the district attorney's office, because this incident happened in August. It was tried in February. You know, I know based on one of the articles, the sheriff says he gave 20 videos. Mr. Eckel says something. I mean, I don't know where that lies in.
Right.
But that's where you need to review the cases. The district attorney's office knew and should have known what evidence they had when they went to trial, and I assume they did. You know, I don't know how it would have necessarily been different. I would have tried to look for a resolution prior to trial. Absent that, I mean, we saw the trials, it's there. You know, I've known Amisha for years. She's perfectly capable of handling all of this, and she did a fine job. The judge just felt there wasn't sufficient evidence. And like I said, that's a question of, was that all the evidence they had? Was that the evidence they chose? And those are questions I can't get into. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, and most of us in the community, we're not in the courtroom,
right?
You know, and most people in the community aren't attorneys,
right.
And so, you know, there's a learning curve there in terms of evidentiary procedure and that sort of thing.
I do think there is. I mean, there is still. I think it is a legitimate question of. You had one of the women, Takia Thompson, who proudly climbed up there, pushed it over, and proudly proclaimed, "I did it," and you know. God bless her. You know, like I said, I think you still have to enforce the laws. There is some question of could you have gotten a conviction against her, because she kind of admitted to it on the news, but they never did try her. They tried the other cases, but that's, you know, the prosecutors decide which cases to try and in what order, and I'm sure they had a reason.
Okay. Yeah, and it's tough, and I mean, you know, typically, well, we all sort of sit back and read the article, and you're trying to make your own determination about what you thought should have been done or shouldn't have been done, even just from a layman's standpoint, people in the community. But if you aren't in the courtroom, it's hard to even rely on what the newspaper says, because they're picking, you know, part of what they're sharing also. So it's really sort of difficult to even put together a story if you're not there. But yeah, so that was one of the, I guess, more recent difficult cases.
It was, and it's one of those that, I mean, you know, you're kind of, I mean, it's a tough spot. I mean, but that's part of what being a district attorney is. That's part of what being a sheriff is. You're going to be put in tough spots. I mean, you know, it's, and you have the discretion on doing it. I mean, how far do you go in saying, I need to enforce the laws as they are, there's other ways to do it, versus, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not upset as to what they did, so let's see where it is. And that's where I don't know, you know, if there would have been another way to approach the consequences and say, look, rather than have these trials and stuff, let's see if we can get community service, you know, do community education. And, you know, I would have, you know, if they explored that, great. I'm unaware that they explored it, but I wasn't involved in the case. Maybe they refused it, maybe the DA refused it, I don't know. But I would have liked to have seen some of that explored a little bit more.
So let me switch gears a little bit, because we did have a chance to talk to Roger about some of the other responsibilities that the district attorney has.
Right.
So so outside of the courtroom, this sort of, you know, the HR piece, because you've got a team, you know, the policy piece, the teamwork piece in terms of working with other judges. So you've got the courtroom experience, you understand criminal law in and out. But, you know, tell us what you bring to the table in terms of the other responsibilities for this particular job.
I mean, I think part of it is, I mean, I've had my own business now for however many years, 14, 15, it blurs together. Even prior to that, though, I've got an undergraduate degree in finance. I've got a master's in business administration, a master's in health administration, and worked in executive management in hospitals. So I am used to working with teams, working with professionals, and guiding a lot of that stuff and dealing with the policy. You know, learning how to manage folks, setting up structures. I do think the district attorney, I think it's important to try some cases, get in the courtroom, you know, once every month or two, you know, run district court for a day, just see what's happening. You know, try a case every now and then. But it is an advocacy, it is a managerial role, and I do have that in my past. I've done that before. That's one of the reasons, I've kind of wanted to get back to it. Right now I just have a small firm, usually between 2 and 3 employees, kind of depending on the day. But I have managed, 50, 100 people and big budgets and stuff. And so I am used to that, and I am used to kind of taking on some of those roles.
So if there were something that you said, well, I've got all of this, I'm bringing all this to the table, there is this one area that I think probably that's going to be the piece that I'm going to work a little bit more differently on, because maybe I have less experience in that area. Is there anything?
Well, I think one of the areas, frankly, is the prosecutor side. I have been a defense attorney. I think at the end of the day, we're all looking for justice. We're all looking for the same goal. So I don't think that's as big of a deal. And there's been a lot of defense attorneys who become successful prosecutors. But you do need to make sure you're cognizant of the fact that, prosecutors do have a different role than than defense attorneys. And so we kind of certainly have to kind of work on that area. And make sure that you're not too focused on the procedure and the technical things, and recognize you do have the community. DAs, I always joke, as a defense attorney, my job's easy. I represent the defendant. The prosecutor represents the state. And that includes the victims. That includes my client. That includes other people. And I think you've got to make sure. Some prosecutors get narrow vision and I'm representing the defendant. Well, not really. I'm representing the victim, and you're not. And so I think, making sure that you keep in mind that you have a lot of the other stakeholders. It is more of a public position. It's not as narrowly focused on, you have this easy job to represent. There's a lot more consequences to it.
So have you ever run for office before?
I've not. The closest I came is when Judge Morey resigned to go take over the House seat. I threw my name in that thing. But that was kind of a last minute, and that was just kind of to feel out the waters. I think the choice Roy Cooper made, I have no issues with. So that was really the only one that I had done. I've kind of thought about it off and on for a while and debated it, but this is the first time I've actually taken the plunge.
And how has it gone for you? What are your thoughts?
It's been interesting. I actually worked on Omar Beasley's campaign. I was his campaign treasurer when he ran, so I was kind of a little bit of it. Right now, it's still being busy. I was in that trial.
Okay, so we're going to stop for just a second because they're having a really good conversation at the water fountain. Yeah.
Right now I'm still literally just trying to jump into it. Originally, my trial was supposed to be 3 co-defendants tried together starting March 5th, and we expected it to last 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
On March 5th, the state came in and announced that despite 2.5 years of insisting that we try them together, they were severing the trials and going to try my client first. So then we started mine on March 12th and didn't get the verdict until Monday. So campaigning has been incredibly hectic. It's been more so by being in trial from literally all day and nights and weekends. It's fun, it's interesting. You don't realize how many barbecue dinners there are, and spaghetti dinners, and pancake breakfasts, and all the emails and groups. It's fun, but it is a lot of work. And now that my trial's over, I'm doing questionnaires take longer than you think. To make sure you get them worded right, and so many different groups that do them. But it's fun. I'm enjoying it. I haven't had a weekend to decompress from my trial yet, and so, now I'm starting to get back into it. But you run into weird things, like I ordered a bunch of signs. They came in today, and they left the R off my name. So literally, all of the signs we were getting ready to start putting out, I had to call the printer and say,
oh no,
you missed it. So now I'm getting signs again later. So it's just little things like that that kind of pop up. But it's been fun. It's different.
Yeah, it is. Been there, but and getting in front of the people and talking to people. And so do you have your game plan ready to go? Early voting's going to be starting. What's that going to look like for you?
Early voting's coming, and one of the things that we're pushing, unfortunately this is a partisan primary in a non-presidential year. Turnout average is about 10%. I have always been an advocate for more people needing to vote, and so I'm still constantly pushing that. Because people need to understand, whatever you think of Washington, things like that, the only elections on the ballot are sheriff, DA, and school board. But those positions matter. The top 2 elected law enforcement officials. So we're really pushing that. We're kind of doing the dinners. We're rolling out the signs. We're also, frankly, talking to a lot of the folks who are Republicans and saying, there aren't many of you in Durham. There's about 20,000 registered, but you deserve a say too. So they have until April 13th to change to unaffiliated to have a voice as well. for who it is. So that's kind of where we're rolling out. You know, the events are kicking off. You know, the People's Alliance just had their endorsement. The Durham Committees is coming up. The Friends of Durham is coming up. The Sheriff Police Alliance. And so just meeting with the groups, talking with folks, you know, told people, you got a group you want me to meet with?
Yeah.
Give me a call, you know, doing, now that I'm not in the trial, I can do lunches and stuff. But a lot of dinners, interviews like this, things like that. I mean, there's just, you just got to get out there. It's like, I've always been friendly and willing to talk to people.
Are you an extrovert?
Oh yeah. So
criminal attorney. Yes, extrovert.
Exactly. And you know, I mean, and I do know a lot of the folks. I mean, you know, in the community and stuff. And it's like I tell people, even when talking to the Republicans and things like that. I mean, we're all Democrats in Durham. I mean, you know, we're all.
I know, it's
you
sort
know,
of, well, you know.
We're all on the progressive
Well,
side.
yeah,
I mean,
and
we
let
all
me-
are looking for progressive reform.
Yeah, and let me sort of share that with you because I haven't posted this video yet, so it'll be interesting. People will be
Right.
like, wait, she's talking about another video that she hasn't posted yet, so now I need to go look at that one. But yes, I had a talk with Andrea Benjamin, former UNC professor. She's a professor at a different school now, but she did some research.
Okay.
And one of the things she said was that we aren't that different. So regardless of what box people are checking in
Right.
terms of party affiliation, she said based on her sort of exit interviews and
Right.
what she was looking at, that we're all sort of leaning the same way. You know, and really and truly, the differences come down to the details, like how
Right.
we think we should reach that end result.
Right.
So we're all sort of thinking the same thing in terms
Right.
of the result.
Right.
It's just how we get there.
And I think that is certainly a part of it. I mean, if you look at my platform and some of the other ones, they're reasonably similar. I mean, obviously we differ in some areas. You know, Roger's been doing this for 5 or 6 years. He's starting to implement low bond review, things like that. But I mean, he's got a track record. You know what you're getting with him. Me and Miss DeBerry, she always pronounces it that way. We have a lot of similar ideas. I think what would separate me from her is I've been doing this for the last 16 years. I know she practiced criminal law when she first started, but hasn't, by her own admission, since 2001. And a lot has changed. And I know there's a lot of progressive things out there. There's a lot of things, but like, you know, Larry Krasner, who a lot of people are taking ideas, the DA in Brooklyn. Some of their ideas are good. Some of their ideas don't work for Durham because our laws are completely different. And I know what does work, what doesn't work, like the bond review. I think we really need to do that, but I've had people ask, well, can you implement that? No, not alone.
Right.
The judges have to do that. The relationship with law enforcement. My wife's a cop. That I have a different relationship with law enforcement than some would, which is good. I mean, that helps me because as the prosecutor, you've got to have a good relationship with them. We want them to do better. So I think a lot of it comes into, obviously we do have ideas differing on certain areas. I know she's got different views on habitual crimes, things like that. So we do have some differences. But even on the other one, it's in the implementation. I mean, I've done it, I've been there, I know who to talk to, I know who the players are, I know who the actors are, and frankly, I know what is happening right now with the system. You know, like if someone's charged with certain ones, I kind of know the guidelines as to where they are. So for me, I have a lot of the practical experience, and I have it from the defense side, so unlike having been a career prosecutor, I kind of know where the issues are. I know where the holes are. I know what the prosecutors are doing wrong to lose cases. I know where they're kind of getting more obsessed with the conviction than the justice. Because we should all be seeking justice, and sometimes justice is a conviction, sometimes justice is a dismissal. You know, and I think I can bring that perspective from having kind of worked through that and the practical on-the-ground experience.
Okay, all right. So anything else you want to add to this? This is sort of your show, your
Okay.
moment.
No, I mean, I think it's kind of what I had said is, I mean, I think if you look at my record, if you look at my track record, you know, I know what needs to be done. I know how to get it done. And, you know, I want us to move Durham forward. You know, now is the time for the justice reform. Now is the time we're starting to realize, you know, the mass incarceration hasn't worked. The, you know, punishing people because they're poor. Like one of the issues too, you know, you hear a lot about, you know, people do the civil, you know, one of the advantages of doing the civil, not civil judgments, but like the deferrals and the diversions is the General Assembly says we can't remit court costs. We can't waive them anymore. And so the problem is someone gets a speeding ticket or someone gets a minor crime and they owe all this money and then they can't pay it and it just spirals. They're being punished because they're poor, and right now the workaround is, well, let's make it a civil judgment. Well, the problem with the civil judgment is it's like a tax lien. They're going to seize your tax returns. So that doesn't help you either. But if you let them do community service, do your classes, you can help them avoid some of those consequences. You know, the mental health court we have is great. The drug treatment court we have is great. A lot of counties, and I think it's time for us to implement a veterans court. We've got a lot of veterans. We've been in combat and things a lot. People are coming back and they have specialized needs, and a lot of counties are pushing that. I think it's time to kind of move that forward. And so that's my goal. Some people, I mean, sometimes conviction is appropriate, you know, violent crimes, things like that. People are going to go to jail. People do have to be separated from society for a while. We need to reform our whole prison system, but that's a whole different topic.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's that, and I think it's, we need to kind of make sure that, again, like I said, it's the consequences have to be appropriate to the actions. Sometimes it's conviction, sometimes it's not.
So I'm going to switch gears for just a moment. So you mentioned something earlier, barbecue.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so you're running for office. You've been exposed to all of this good food and maybe not so healthy food all the time. So how are you managing that aspect of the campaign trail?
Well, a lot of it is, I lose weight in trials because I tend not to eat healthy, which is a bad thing. My wife gets very upset with that. And now with this, so it is trying to walk, you know, just trying to get more into that, you know, now that the weather's nice.
Oh yeah, that helps.
Right, and the advantage is my office is at the corner of Parish and Mangum, so every time I go to court, it's about a half-mile walk. So I do a lot of that and focus on that, and then you have to learn portion control. But I do need to work more on that. My wife works in the courthouse now. She was a police officer, now she's a sheriff's deputy, so she brings me in lunches and makes sure I eat.
Nice. Is she cooking these lunches for you?
Yes, usually.
No way.
Sometimes.
What's she cooking?
A lot of times it'll be leftovers. Like she makes a lot of seafood for herself, but a lot of chicken, pasta, things like that.
Tell her I love seafood.
I will. So, but it's I mean that is actually the challenge that I have is trying to maintain that because especially you are going nonstop with this campaign stuff, and everyone does want. I mean, it's everywhere you go. It's here, have this, have this, have this. So a lot of it is just controlling the portions, but I really am trying to make a concerted effort to walk and kind of focus a little bit more on it. But right now, it's not going well.
So do you have a gym membership, or is it mostly walking?
It's mainly
I go outside too. Yeah. I prefer outside.
It's mainly walking.
Yeah.
Me and some of the attorneys at lunch when the weather's nice usually walk at lunch. Like we'll walk from the courthouse all the way to Duke East Campus around and back. With the weather being bad and unpredictable, we haven't done it as much as we have, but that's usually what we do. I've always debated a gym membership. I just haven't. I've got some friends who want to do it here, want to do it there. The problem is a lot of my friends work in the courthouse, and the people who work in the courthouse, there's actually a gym they can use.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to use it because we don't work in the courthouse, we're just there every day. So most of it is focused just on the walking and then trying to control what I eat and things. Portion control more than denying myself.
I don't mean to sound like I'm like pushing a gym membership.
Right.
I'm just asking various I'm just asking people what work, because that's really it, because they always ask the question, they say, well, what's the best exercise? The best exercise is the one that you will continue to do, you know? Well, what's the best time to exercise? Well, the time that works for you, yeah. And so, I'm one of these equal opportunity exercisers, so I've got a treadmill at home and a gym membership, and I prefer to run outside.
Right.
So wherever I am, there's not really any sort of excuse.
Right.
But yeah, the ease of having things available like that really helps. So that was part of the thing with our neighborhood, being able to just walk right outside and be in an environment where my husband could ride his bike and I could run. And
that's where we are, because me and my wife will walk. We live in Parkwood, and it's got some real nice walking areas and stuff too. But it was one of those things where we had done real good for it last year, and then as the weather got bad and then I got busy, we kind of changed jobs, changed the schedule. And then I've been busy with just a lot of back-to-back trials and then getting ready with this trial. But it is something I definitely need to get back into, because I feel better when I just, not the real intense workouts, but at least the walking and stuff. It's just nice to get out. And I'm one of those people, one of the things I learned in South Bend, where the sun goes away in October and comes back in May, is I need the sun.
Me too.
And so that's one of the reasons I like walking, because even being in a gym, I want to be outside and get the sun. And so I really do that, and I've really missed our weird weather. But of course, it's supposed to snow this weekend, so I think they've backed it off.
That's a joke, right?
No, I think they've slowly backed off, but as of 2 days ago, it was going to snow. Now I think they say it's just going to be about 35 and rainy, because Why not?
That sounds worse.
It does. I learned that in South Bend too. I would rather snow than rain because 40 and rainy is much worse than 20 and snowing.
Exactly.
So yeah, I do need to get much better at the working out, but for me it usually comes with the weather.
Okay, me too.
Because I also, being from Texas, I love the heat. It can never be too hot for me. So,
Yeah, I'm not a cold person.
no.
Just, yeah, you won't find me any place north of about where I am now. At least not on a permanent basis.
Right. If I want to see snow, I'll go to the mountains for a week, and then you know what? Ooh, there it is. I'm good. Go home and I'm fine. So.
All right. So, do we have anything else? Is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, maybe
up to
we'll
you.
walk around the gym and see if there's anything you want to try out.
That's fine.
She just follows along.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, then I sort of pick a few clips and I'm like, oh yeah, we'll show this part. That's
Fine.
part.
I'll do whatever you want to try.
Yeah.
Don't back
So yeah, well let's try. So see, the
Yeah,
moment you
it's
point
gonna
something out and you say,
shrink.
what's that? Then that becomes the thing we need to try.
Okay.
So yeah, so I've never done this one. I've done the thing beside it. Actually, I did this thing with Levon.
Nice. I think
Yeah.
what you get on it.
Yeah, and so right now,
How
let me
much-
tell you how much weight it's on. So it's on 40,
Oh, that's-
which is the lowest.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I guess for your back or knees.
Yeah. So I think you might want to step one step up. There you go.
My back.
All right.
Now it'll work.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Huh.
So I don't know what that strengthens, but okay.
Yeah, the other ones have a picture on it. This one doesn't have a picture on it. So I can't even tell you either.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to have a picture.
Ah, picture's gone.
Picture's gone.
Picture's gone. So, yeah. And since Patrick's not here to tell us how that really works, we won't do that one. We'll do maybe this one. We did this one with Levon, and he
Okay.
thought it was very interesting that I had him working on his like rear, but
Right.
I thought that was okay. So this one, and we'll put it on 20 because I don't even remember how well that worked last time. And so yeah, so we're just sort of doing
Okay, that's all.
like that.
Right.
When Donna started baring her arms, and I was like, wait, those look awesome. Can I get you some of those?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but mine have never really looked quite like that. But, yeah. All right. We'll let you have at it.
All
So,
right.
yeah, you feel free to turn those weights up. Yeah.
Probably do more weight, but I need to kill myself.
I know, really, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this place is a nice gym. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It used to be over on Hillendale Road.
Okay.
But then they redid the shopping center and they moved over here. And so since I'm a person, so over at Little Miss Plaza.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know there's a new gym where the Walmart on MLK closed down. Apparently
really?
that's a gym
I
that some
didn't
people
know
had
that.
talked about.
I think maybe I did hear that.
So, but I've heard a lot of people talk about that one, so
Okay.
just wanted to try.
Huh. All right. So since we did the back part, maybe we'll do the inner and the outer thighs.
Okay.
The adductors and the abductors. So I don't do a lot of weights. And it's funny because I got here late this morning, and one of the guys goes, "Oh look, she got here late. She didn't even run outside like she was supposed to because the weather was nice. And then on top of that, she's probably going to get on the treadmill and walk." I said, "You're exactly right. I'm getting on the treadmill and I'm going to walk." So, we'll have you get on this one, and I'll get on
Okay.
this one. And so yeah, with that one,
So you.
yeah, and then the hands are on the side. Yeah. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so you're working the inner thighs.
Okay.
I'm going to work the outer thighs and then the split.
Okay. first I was worried, it's like, oh, I don't want too much space. It's like, oh, let's go.
I know, right? Like this is a machine where I don't want to like really get stuck. Oh, I probably should do that. I rarely do these.
So when do you normally go to the gym?
I try to come in. I usually come in the morning.
Okay.
I'm a gotta get it done early kind of person.
Do you do litigation at all? I know you're a firm. Okay, so you just do a lot of
Yep, a lot of
transactional.
transactional. Yep.
I used to do a lot of corporate and civil, and then decided I loved the courtroom. So
Well, you know what? When Emerson was really young, and so I really didn't want to be tied to a courtroom calendar.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, you lose flexibility.
Yeah.
You know, they tell you when to be and where.
Yeah. All right, you want to switch up?
Yep. I don't.
Oh, that's okay. I know. There's a little thing you gotta do it to get it
I was
back.
gonna say I don't have a clue how to actually switch. But
That's okay. Yeah, there's a thing here.
there's a switch somewhere.
Yeah, right there. All right. This is like musical chairs. You switch up.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Well, that was always the other thing. For me, it's easier to work at if you have people to work out with.
Yeah. Yeah. When I lived in Raleigh, my middle sister was here, and so
Okay.
we both had a gym membership at Club Fit
Okay.
on New Bern Avenue. I don't even know if they're still there. But yeah, that was super nice. And then when we had the apartment together right after I graduated from, oh no, I was working, she was finishing up at Central. We lived off of Harrison Avenue in Cary.
Okay.
And so we would
Oh,
walk
yeah.
a lot there. You know.
Where'd you go to law school?
I went to Carolina.
Okay. As far as that. Which was great until Notre Dame joined the ACC.
Well, you know, I don't even like the ACC isn't even like the real ACC
Not anymore. I'm just like, I remember watching the games and it's like, well, there's Syracuse. You know, Syracuse is next. No.
I'm just like, no, that's, yeah. All right, you ready to switch up?
Yep.
Yeah, oops. So this one, yeah, right here.
Oh, it's that way.
Yep.
Okay. That makes some sense.
So yeah, I mean, you know, I'm that old NC State, Carolina, Duke, Maryland, Georgia ACC type person. I'm like Boston College. I've never even heard of Boston College.
Yeah, it's. Wasn't it and things like that.
I
It's
know. That's just no. That's like ACC Plus or something.
Like, yeah.
ACC Special Edition.
I mean, I understand why they do it, but there's something to be said for tradition.
I think it's all about some green stuff.
All about the money. And that's why they all wanted Notre Dame, because they're like, eventually they'll join the conference in football, and we get it all.
Well, I tell you, it's, you know, it's interesting to know about the money and where the money flows and to understand, you know, the impact that that has on the players who are playing the game.
Oh, yeah. What it bothers me, they always say the players need to commit to the school. And I'm like, well, then the school needs to commit to the players. Their scholarships are one-year scholarships. They can dump you at any time.
Yep.
It's like, no, players have to commit to the school. The school has to say, you know what, we're still going to give you a free education.
There you go. All right, anything else you want to try? How's some calendar?
So what?
So, yeah. So, up here, we're like, I'm short, so.
Okay, oh, that's similar to the other one, except you're facing forward.
Yeah. And I'm not even doing that many of those, but there you go. Yeah, and it was so interesting, you know, to read that come out. I saw you about the notice of appeal.
Well, you always do.
Yeah.
Every conviction, you're going to do that. People always say, does that mean anything? No, I mean, if you get an appeal right, we have the Office of the Appellate Defender, so we do it. Sometimes it comes back. Unfortunately, most times they're fairly clean. So, I just don't like the felony murder
Yeah.
And it's a very harsh punishment. And unlike regular murderers, where you get, lesser included offenses and things like that, you don't.
All right, cool.
All right.
Well, it's been good, Daniel.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on board and having to go through what I went through last year.
Mm-hmm.
So are you fit to be a politician?
I hope so. We'll find out May 8th, but I think I am.
So. I think
so.
you'll be fit even if that doesn't quite work out as you hope.
Well, if it doesn't, I'm still a defense attorney
That's
in Durham.
right.
I'll
That's
still do what I'm doing and helping the people I'm helping.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Well, I think we're good, Miss Emerson.
Thank you. That's kind of what I figured.
It's an interesting sort of place to be.
It is, but I mean, that's what needs to happen.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the idea that you can look. And I tell people this all the time. So my father used to say, you need to be able to listen to other people who have ideas that are different than yours.
Well, that's what I always say. I mean, we represent everybody. I hate this new trend in politics. If you didn't vote for me, I don't represent you. Yeah, you do. So.
That's right. That's exactly right.